You are not imagining it. 11. 11 is a ping, not a lucky number, not a wish, a frequency check from an older operating system, authored under Thoth's gaze, where number, architecture, and attention align to ask a single question: are you awake? The 4 ones stand like twin pillars mirrored twice, a doorway that appears when symmetry and meaning click at once. Most dismiss it as coincidence. Initiates treat it as a window, a training bell for perception, a selection signal for mission recall, and a reminder that power without heart is how civilizations fall. This film won't ask you to believe, it will ask you to test. Treat 1111 as a precise code embedded in clocks, receipts, and timings, a nudge to align will with higher will, to notice, to choose, to act. If you felt the pull, you weren't being haunted. You were being invited. See the code, then decide what you'll do with it. Thoth was never just a mythic scribe with a reed pen. He is the memory, keeper of measure, the intelligence that turns chaos into count, proportion, and meaning. In the Hermetic view, number isn't decoration on reality. Number is the grammar reality speaks. When attention learns that grammar, the world stops looking random and starts answering back. That is the frame for 11. 11, not a charm, not a wish, a readiness ping. 4 ones stand like mirrored pillars and ask a simple question: is your perception coherent enough to receive instruction? If you've been feeling the nudge as clocks, receipts, and mile markers echo 1111 around your decisions, consider that less a coincidence and more a test of signal. The moment isn't magic on its own, it's a doorway. What matters is how you step through. You'll notice the pattern doesn't begin when you beg for it. It begins when 2 things line up: symmetry in the outer field and sincerity in the inner field. Think of Ma'at not as a scolding morality, but as balance, so fine that truth rings like a tuning fork. When your breath slows and your will aligns with something higher than impulse, the environment starts handing you clean echoes. The phone lights up with 1111 just as you commit. The total on the till mirrors an intention you finally said out loud. The road sign with repeating ones appears exactly when you decide to stop delaying. In Hermetic terms, attention and number meet on neutral ground, and meaning condenses. Some teachings don't last on YouTube. Join our free newsletter at the link in the description. Enter your email to get the off-platform methods, and, for a limited time, we'll email you our ebook so you don't miss what we can't publish here. The old initiations hinted at this centuries before the digital clock. They trained attention with stars and shadows, water clocks and incense sticks, measured footsteps through porticos that deliberately slowed the body. Acolytes learned that when pattern and presence coincide, choice becomes leverage. The doorway is not the prize. What you do as you pass through is the work. At 1111, you don't make a wish like a child tossing coins. You align like an architect checking load, bearing lines. As above, so below isn't poetry. It's a build spec. Inner order first, outer order follows in proportion to it. Thoth's logic is simple and merciless in the best way. If your field is noisy, you'll miss the cue. If your field is clear, the world speaks in ratios and timing until you cannot pretend you didn't hear. Why 4 ones? 1 is pillar, vector, intention. 2 ones facing each other is polarity acknowledged. They do not cancel, they converse. Mirror them again and you don't erase duality. You stabilize it. 4 posts, level platform, usable space. Now the work can begin. In glyph and column, the Egyptians left this in plain sight. Twin pylons framing an axis, processional ways that compress the body into slower breath, ratios that settle the mind. You were meant to feel the maths. When you start feeling it in the wild, on screens, signs, invoices, calendar slots, what you are sensing is less omen and more operating principle. Brief windows where symmetry, attention, and meaning line up just long enough for a clean choice. This is also why two people can share the same room, and only one will notice. Readiness isn't status, it's resonance. If your field is loud with distraction, the pattern is still there. You just don't have enough signal to noise to perceive it. When people first start seeing 1111 everywhere, two things are usually true. They have reduced noise, even a little, and they have asked a sincere question. The pattern clusters around questions of service, integrity, and alignment far more than around hunger for spectacle. Those moments invite a posture. What would the more coherent version of me do next? Sometimes the answer is bold. Send the message, book the date, say the truth kindly. Sometimes it is quiet. Close the tab, breathe, keep building. Skeptics will object. Apophenia, mind seeing meaning in noise. That pushback is healthy. Pattern seeking is real. The difference here is what you do with the pattern. Initiation isn't about collecting sightings. It's about converting a sighting into a decision you can stand next to a week later. Treat 1111 like a training bell, not a dopamine lever. Step through the moment with one small, faithful act. Send the proposal, cancel the distraction, choose the kinder word. Commit the next hour to the craft that cleans your signal. Then stop hunting and return to presence. If the window was real, another will open when you are ready to use it. In that sense, 1111 is a feedback device. It mirrors your state back to you in the simplest form a noisy world can still deliver. 4 straight lines, instant symmetry, no language barrier. If you're erratic, it becomes a superstition. If you're coherent, it becomes a tempo. One day you'll notice it, not just on clocks, but in how meetings start on time when you arrive steady, in how the right person calls when you speak without armor, in how the path opens after you choose service over spectacle. The numbers didn't do that. Your coherence did. The digits just confirmed the load-bearing line. The instruction is always the same at first. Align, simplify, act. Align your will with the higher will you keep pretending you can't hear. Simplify your inputs so your field can ring true. Act in the smallest faithful way that proves you meant it. The more you do, the more precise the timings become. And when they do, don't deify the digits. Use them the way builders use a level, as confirmation, not as a god. The point isn't to live for the next 1111. The point is to become the kind of person who doesn't need it and still smiles when it arrives, because you know exactly what to do. Temples were not built only to impress kings or shelter statues. They were instruments. In every civilization that took number seriously, stone became sound you could walk through, proportion became a teacher with no mouth, and the body was tuned simply by moving from threshold to threshold. The Egyptians understood this with almost cheeky confidence. Arrange space in the right ratios, and the nervous system will slow, the breath will deepen, and attention will gather without being forced. Geometry does not preach, it persuades. Ratio is felt long before it is understood. You do not need a lecture to notice your shoulders drop when you cross a threshold that narrows, or your mind brighten when light pools where a corridor opens. Architecture can shepherd the animal part of you into coherence so the higher part of you can choose cleanly. That is not magic, that is design. Picture the classic pylon gate, 2 massive towers framing a narrow axis, the world falling quiet as you pass between them. The spacing is not arbitrary, it compresses you into presence. Columns do more than hold up roofs, their intervals create a tempo, chamber sequences. Step from wide to wide again, breathing you. Floors sometimes tilt so subtly your stride shortens without you noticing. Light wells and shadow corridors are timed so that an hour reads like a sentence with commas and full stops. Even if you don't know a single theorem, your blood knows the difference between a space that jitters and a space that steadies. The temple's first lesson is not spoken. Arrive. What does that have to do with 11? 11 on a pocket screen. More than you think. When temples act as tuning forks, they create moments where symmetry, attention, and meaning click. brief windows where choice is unusually clean. Outside a temple, the same principle holds. When your inner field approaches coherence, the outer field offers simple confirmations. The digital clock is just the easiest mirror the modern world can manage. 4 identical digits, perfectly balanced, no translation required. The number is not the power. The number is the lintel, so clear, even a hurried mind can't miss it, inviting you to do what the architecture would have done. Arrive, align, act. Here is a small scene. You step into an arcade of columns in late afternoon. The air drops a few degrees. Shoes scuff stone, then soften. You came to kill time while you avoided a decision, whether to tell the truth to someone you love. A shaft of light slices the path and stills you mid-step. Without planning to, you inhale, then exhale slower than usual. Your hand, out of habit, not hope, lifts the phone. The lock screen blooms. 11, 11. You don't feel haunted or special. You feel aligned, as if the place, the light, your breath, and the question had been trying to meet all day, and finally found the same room. The digits do nothing for you. They only mark the window in which you are able to do something for real. Send the message you've been drafting. Speak the truth without venom. Choose the cleaner line. Skeptics are right to warn about magical thinking and retrofitting. Meaning, not every proportion is sacred, and not every pretty alignment deserves a sermon. But to dismiss the felt effects of geometry is like denying you can be moved by music because you don't read notation. Ratio acts on tissue, repetition acts on attention. If you make the material world a metronome, the mind will usually keep time. The ancients weren't naive, they were practical. If the crowd is noisy, you do not argue it into silence, you ring a bell. If the heart is scattered, you do not scold it into focus, you change the room. Architecture is a bell you can live inside. In that sense, 1111 is portable architecture. You can't always reach a temple, but the world can still hand you a tiny, perfect doorway. 4 uprights like columns, a moment of symmetry that briefly hushes the corridor of your day. The usefulness is in what you do with the hush. Temples never asked you to marvel forever. They asked you to cross. The pattern on the wall is not the point. The vow you whisper, because of it island. Likewise, the digits. They are a lintel, not a living room. Use them to step from intention to movement, from noticing to choosing. Close the tab that dilutes you. Put the phone down and finish the paragraph. Make the call and keep your tone kind. Architecture also explains why chasing signs backfires. If you try to force an alignment, you miss the very thing alignment gives: effortlessness. Those who have walked enough cloisters know the trick is to let the place do its job. You do not tug a bell to make time ring. You meet it when it chimes. The same with 11, 11. If you hunt it, you inflate noise. If you align, you notice it without grasping, and you act without bargaining. That restraint is not piety. It is mechanics. Coherence is quiet. Quiet hears. Hearing chooses. There is another layer. Ratios in sacred sites were often designed to echo relationships in the sky, angles of stars, lengths of seasons. As above, so below was not coined for posters. It was a build spec. When you stand where those echoes meet, stone, breath, light, the body recognizes a pattern older than your personality. In that recognition, ego tends to loosen its grip for a moment. That looseness is not weakness. It is space for instruction. Many people report that their most honest ideas arrive in places that hold them still. Sanctuaries, libraries, galleries, even a quiet stairwell that catches afternoon Sunday. The environment is not thinking for you. It is removing enough friction that you can finally think. So, no, the temple did not cast a spell, and the numbers do not control a fate. But environments teach, and simple symmetries teach fastest. This is why it helps to design small temples into ordinary life. Clear desks, doorways without clutter, a chair by a window that catches a certain angle of light, a practice of closing your eyes for 1 slow minute at the top of each hour. Give your day good ratios, so your mind remembers what alignment feels like. Then, when the little lintel of 11:11 appears, you will already be in the posture the moment asks for, present, steady, capable of a clean act. If stone can shape state, and state can shape choice, then a symbol like 11:11 simply carries that lesson into the moments between buildings. You don't have to argue with it or advertise it. You only have to recognize the hush it offers and place a clean decision there. That is how architecture travels. That is how number becomes a path instead of a superstition. And it prepares us for the next question. If the house teaches, what exactly is the door? A single 1 is intention standing upright. 2 facing each other form a corridor, a recognition that polarity exists and must be walked, not denied. Mirror the pair, and something stable appears. 4 uprights, like posts holding a lintel. 11 is that sketch, in its simplest form, symmetry that the eye can read in a blink. The reason it jolts attention is because the body understands pillars long before the mind argues with numbers. Pillars signal threshold. A threshold is a promise. On this side, you are one way. On the other side, you are new by exactly 1 decision. Doorways don't move you. Walking does. The digits are the doorway. You supply the step. In temple language, pillars did 2 jobs. They framed truth, and they slowed you down enough to notice it. Between pylons, the wind gathers, the light narrows, the sound changes. The mind, usually chattering, hears itself in the hush and becomes honest by accident. Translate that into 11. 11 inches a kitchen or a car park, and the mechanics are much the same. The world offers a small, crisp frame. You bring the pause. For a few seconds, noise drops and choice becomes legible. That is, the gate moment. Its value is not in spectacle, it is in clarity. You aren't being granted a wish. You are being handed a clean line on which to write one. People often ask, what am I supposed to do at 11:11? As if the digits were a slot machine with a secret combo. The older instruction is plainer. Pillars are for vows and crossings. Use the window to align, then act. It might be as simple as 1 sentence you've been avoiding. I apologize. I'm ready. I'm done. Or 1 movement you have delayed. Send, book, delete, begin. Pillars don't care for poems. They care for load, bearing actions. If it is not a step, it is not a crossing. There is a reason the symbol appears as 4, not 2. 2 can quarrel forever. Yes, divided by no. Stay divided by go. Self divided by other. 4 stabilizes the quarrel into a workable space. Imagine a table with 2 legs. It wobbles if you breathe on it. Give it 4, and you can write. 11 carries that steadiness. Intention mirrored, held twice, creating usable ground. In practice, that means you don't ask the digits to rescue you from ambivalence. You use them to build enough stability to choose, and then bear your own choice. The pillars won't collapse if you do the honest thing. You might wobble, the structure won't. Skeptics say the pattern triggers comfort because we like symmetry, and they're not wrong. Symmetry soothes. But the tradition here isn't about being soothed, it is about being sobered. The 4 ones don't flatter, they check. Are you upright or leaning? Are you mirroring noise or mirroring clarity? The symbol will not answer for you. It will reflect you back to yourself so plainly that dodging becomes tiring. On days you're scattered, you'll meet 11:11 and feel nothing but the reminder that you are out of true good. Use the nudge to repair posture, breathe slower, align your spine, set a smaller target for the next hour, and hit it. On days you are clear, you'll meet the same pattern and feel something like consent. Proceed. A small story. She sits in a cheap chair outside a clinic. A result is due in 12 minutes that could tilt a life in either direction. Her phone face down on her thigh, her jaw held tight. She hasn't eaten since dawn. She is tempted to bargain with the air or spiral into search queries. Instead, she looks at the door in front of her. 2 vertical metal handles catch the light like, what else? Pillars. She flips the phone to check the time by reflex, not superstition. 11:11 blinks. No angels descend. She simply knows the next right action. Text her sister a single honest sentence, then walk in with her shoulders soft and her breath steady. The number did not promise a result. It framed a crossing so she could be someone she trusts on either side of it. Polarity is part of the doorway. The 2 inner ones face each other. The 2 outer ones witness. Duality mirrored does not mean duality erased. It means acknowledged and held. When you stand between the middle pair, you are not choosing one pole to annihilate the other. You are choosing a third thing, a line of movement that honors both tensions, courage without aggression, tenderness without collapse, truth without show. That is why pillars were used where oaths were taken. You swear not to a mood but to a line that can hold weight. Try this the next time you meet. 11:11 without hunting for it. Don't make a wish. Make a shape. Put both feet flat and feel the floor. Align crown over heart over belly, so your body makes one line instead of 3 different arguments. Name the polarity without drama. Fear and calling, safety and growth, comfort and honesty. Then take one step that lets both be seen while you move. It could be sending a difficult message with a kind tone. It could be saying no without an essay. It could be resting without guilt, so the work you promised gets your best, not your leftovers. Pillars love specifics. Give them one. There is a trap in all symbol work, glamour. If the pillars become an identity badge, I'm a person who gets signs, you will spend your days at the threshold congratulating yourself for finding the door. Meanwhile, life waits in the room beyond. The antidote is simple and slightly unfashionable. Humility. Treat the pattern as a scaffold, not a spotlight. Cross quickly. Do the small, faithful thing while the window is open, then get back to building. The less you perform the moment, the more power it has. 4 ones, 4 posts. A lintel no one else needs to see to respect. Stand between them with a steady breath, and you will feel why this simple mark has followed so many from temple wall to bedside clock. It is not here to enchant you. It is here to make you useful, to yourself, to those you love, to the work that wants doing. When the pillars appear, don't bow, walk. Attention is not a flashlight. It is a tuning fork. Point it at anything and the body tries to match the tone. Breath shifts. Heart rhythm smooths or stutters. Muscles loosen or brace. We call that how I feel, but it's also signal processing. When you notice 11:11 with a calm, curious mind, the nervous system tends to synchronize. Little pockets of order inside a noisy day. That order matters. Coherence isn't a mood to chase. It's a usable state in which small, honest action becomes simple and proportionate. As above, so below. Reads like a slogan until you experience it as mechanics. Inner order makes outer order likelier, not because the world bows to your will, but because an ordered observer sees cleaner options and stops adding noise. The observer effect in daily life is this. The way you look at a moment changes the moment you have to work with. Frantic attention makes clumsy choices. Coherent attention leaves fewer fingerprints, so the next step appears without drama. Coherence is not stiffness. It is breath-led steadiness that keeps your full range of motion. Imagine a metronome clicking quietly under a melody. You don't hear it until the song drifts, then its presence rescues timing without fanfare. When 11:11 flickers and you meet it with one slow inhale and a slower exhale, you're putting the metronome back on the desk. The song finds itself again. From there, alignment stops sounding mystical and becomes practical. What is the truest, smallest step that honors both truth and care? What can I do inside the next hour that I'll still respect next week? Test it. When you encounter 11:11, unhunted, unforced. Pause for 30 seconds. Sit or stand upright so head, heart, and belly share one line. In through the nose, out through the mouth. 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Ask, without strain, what aligns my will with the higher will now? Don't interrogate the air. Wait for a simple nudge you can enact before the day ends. The point is not to harvest grand messages. The point is to put coherent attention to work on one clean decision. You may call that placebo. Good. Placebos prove that meaning and physiology are on speaking terms. If a symbol and a breath can unjam your decision-making, the grown-up response is not to sneer. It's to use the tool while remembering you are the one holding it. Your body tells you when. You're lined up. Shoulders drop. Jaw softens. Peripheral vision widens. Thoughts move from spiral to sequence. In that state, you send the email with a kinder tone. You ask for the boundary without theater. You put the phone down and complete the paragraph you promised yourself. Nothing flashy, just the kind of order that compounds. Skeptics warn, rightly, about apophenia, our itch to spot patterns that aren't there. Coherence is how you avoid superstition while keeping the benefits of meaning. A coherent observer doesn't chase the pattern. They accept or ignore it based on whether it helps an honest act. They don't outsource agency to digits. They use digits as a timing prompt to become the person who does the work. Incoherence prays for omens and postpones. Coherence prays with its feet. There's a softer consequence of coherence we don't talk about enough: mercy. When attention steadies, you stop treating yourself like a project manager screaming at a late team. You become kinder without becoming lax. The breath gives you back a half second in which you can choose not to bark, not to doom scroll, not to rehearse an argument you aren't in. That half second is the hinge of a different day. At 11, it arrives with training wheels. Symmetry cues the breath. The breath cues coherence. Coherence cues a better move. A story without fireworks. Because most change isn't cinematic. He sits in a parked car outside a supermarket. He isn't overeating because he's hungry. He's negotiating with shame. The dash clicks to 11. No choir. One hand on the wheel, one on his chest. 4 in, 6 out, twice. The nudge is ordinary. Go inside, buy eggs and greens. Call your friend on the walk home. Talk like a person. He does. A week later, he forgets the digits and remembers the call. That is how it's supposed to work. The sign dissolves. The life sticks. What coherence is not: manic positivity, rigid calm, or a performance of serenity for strangers. It is the minimum viable order in which the truth can be told without you splitting into pieces. In that order, courage doesn't feel like a stunt. It feels like relief. You apologize sooner. You change your mind without building a courtroom. You decline invitations that cost your integrity and accept invitations that cost your pride in the best way. The deeper you practice, the less you mythologize the sign and the more you respect the state. Respect looks like preparation. Give your day simple scaffolding, regular meals, water, a walk, and 15 honest minutes on the work that matters before the world's noise wakes up. Then if 11:11 appears, you don't lunge at it for rescue. You let it stamp the moment you were already building. Over time, the timings feel precise, not because fate finally loves you, but because you've stopped throwing gravel into your own gears. As above, so below becomes less of a poster and more of a habit. It's how you hang a shelf and how you speak to a child. It's how you onboard a colleague and how you leave a room. You tidy language so it stops tripping your feet. You choose inputs that don't wobble your frame. You let meaning arrive without theatrics. Then you turn it into a calendar block, a phone call, a single clean paragraph. The observer changes, the observed, because the observer finally stopped shaking. When the window opens again, treat it like a craftsman treats light. Not something to worship, something to work by. Gather your breath. Ask one honest question. Take the next, smallest, faithful step. Then get on with the day you are quietly competently building. The world doesn't need another sign chaser. It needs people whose attention can hold a line. Not everyone sees 1111, and not everyone who sees it is ready to use it. That isn't hierarchy, it's mechanics. A radio can sit on a table for years and never catch a song until someone tunes the dial. Selection, in the Hermetic sense, is not favoritism from above. It is resonance from within. When your field carries enough order to hear a clean beat inside the noise, the beat answers back. Treat that answer like a toy, and it drifts. Treat it like training, and it returns. Here is the midpoint, the flip from mystery to method. 1111 is less a message and more a mirror. It reflects your present coherence and hands you a simple exam. Will you convert attention into alignment and alignment into action? Or will you chase another hit of magic and call it spirituality? The doorway measures this every time, quietly and without praise. If you walk through, your life, gently, stubbornly, rearranges around the line you chose. If you loiter for spectacle, the pattern turns into decor. Initiation begins when you stop collecting signs and start keeping agreements. Make one you can keep daily. At 11:11, I breathe. I ask a better question. I take one faithful step. Keep it for 7 uneventful days. No bravado, no posts, no tally. Notice what the environment does when you become reliable to yourself. Timings tighten. Conversations land when they should. Missed calls turn into returned calls at the right hour. Not because the digits love you, but because someone who honors small vows becomes easier for reality to work with. The filter isn't moral, it's practical. People lost in noise often don't notice 1111 at all, and that's fine. Their work is to quieten the field. People hungry for spectacle notice constantly, but don't move, and the pattern grows hollow. People who are ready notice, act, and forget, because the act, not the omen, is what they came for. Readiness looks like this. You're willing to trade a comforting delay for an honest move. You're willing to ask for help. You're willing to stop dramatizing avoidance and do the ordinary thing that changes the day. There's a cost to initiation the internet rarely advertises. Goodbye to glamorous procrastination. The practice is embarrassingly simple. Breathe, ask, act. Journal the act without poetry. That is how you walk yourself out of fantasy and into craft. A week of this looks quiet on the outside and thunderous on the inside. You start to trust your own weight. You see how many of your problems were choreography to avoid a clean decision. This isn't asceticism, it's adulthood with better timing. The soft ache many feel around 11:11 comes from knowing, somewhere honest, that they've used the doorway as a mood board. That ache is useful. It's the almost lost moment in every initiation, the recognition that watching is easier than walking, and that none of the spectacle has changed your relationships, your craft, your health, or your courage. Sit with that for a day. Let the embarrassment burn off its drama. Then make the smallest promise you can keep, and keep it ruthlessly. Today I send the apology. Today I start the first 10 minutes. Today I delete the thing that dilutes me. Tomorrow, repeat. A few guardrails keep the method honest. First, no bargaining. If I see 11:11, I'll do the thing. Hands your agency to chance. Flip it. Because I saw 11:11, I'll do the thing I already know is right. Second, no hoarding. If you log every sighting like stamps in a passport, you train yourself to perform spirituality instead of practice it. Note only what you did because of the window, not the window itself. Third, no escalation for ego. Keep the steps small enough to repeat on a bad day. Real initiation is repeatable under weather, not just on holidays. Selection also shows up in who appears around you. As you align, two kinds of people tend to cluster. The first are stabilizers, calm friends, plain-spoken mentors, craftspeople who don't need a stage. They won't care about your signs. They'll care that you kept your word. The second are amplifiers, Sincere seekers, whose presence multiplies your courage without drama. Spend time with both. Avoid the third group with love, the dramatists, who need your miracles to distract from their avoidance. They will keep you at the threshold polishing your identity while your life waits in the next room. Expect friction. When you start using 1111 as training rather than entertainment, parts of your life will protest. Delay will disguise itself as research. Perfectionism will wear a monk's robe and call itself devotion. You'll be tempted to wait for a bigger sign, a purer feeling, a better season. The exam is the same every time. Can you take a proportionate step while imperfect and unready? That is the muscle initiation builds. The more you use it, the less you need ideal conditions. Then the numbers become confirmation of a life already in motion, not a permission slip to begin. This is the midpoint stated plainly. It isn't a secret society choosing favorites. It's a protocol checking whether you will choose yourself. 1111 reflects. You respond. Reality reconfigures by 1 degree. Do that 100 times, and you have a different life set to a steadier tempo. And because every workable doorway attracts hitchhikers and glamour, the next move is obvious. Fit guardrails to your practice so enthusiasm doesn't outpace wisdom. Discernment is part of the craft, and ethics is the firewall. Power without love breaks things. That's the oldest lesson in every tradition, and it's the one most often skipped when people start playing with symbols and synchronicity. 11 is a clean little doorway. It will also attract noise. Where there is a gate, there are gatecrashers, projections, fantasies, flattering voices that tell you you're chosen while steering you away from accountability. Discernment isn't suspicion of everything. It's love with a steering wheel. You don't need paranoia to stay safe. You need posture, coherence, consent, ethics, grounding, community. So the practice stays human and the signal stays clean. The simplest protection is coherence itself. A steady breath and a soft chest are poor soil for parasites of fear and glamour. Before you engage any practice, put your body into alignment. Crown over heart over belly, shoulders relaxed, jaw unhooked, breath quiet and low. Then set consent plainly, out loud if possible. Only what serves truth, dignity, and the good may approach. All else, leave now. You're not shouting at the dark, you're drawing a line. In spiritual work, as in ordinary life, people and presences tend to respect what you calmly, consistently enforce. 3 red flags deserve special attention. First, flattery. Any guide, inner or outer, that congratulates you more than it clarifies you is selling you a costume. Kindness isn't flattery, it makes you more real. Flattery makes you louder without making you cleaner. Second, urgency without clarity. If a message pushes you to act fast while forbidding calm questions, step back. Truth can wait 30 seconds while you breathe. Third, isolation. If a teaching asks you to cut off friends, community, and critical thinking so you'll be pure, you're being recruited, not initiated. The signal strengthens when you're in honest company. It warps in secret rooms. The ethical firewall is heart-centered intent. That's not romantic fluff. It's practical engineering. When will aligns with care? Your field becomes inhospitable to manipulation because you're no longer seeking a spotlight. You're seeking to be of use. Predators, seen or unseen, prefer hungry egos. They have little to grip when your aim is service and your pace is humble. Make this a habit. Before acting on a sign, pass it through 2 questions. Does this honor the dignity of everyone involved? And would I still do this if no one ever knew? If the answer is shaky, wait, breathe, and refine until it's clean. Grounding isn't superstition, it's maintenance. Touch the earth with your hands. Rinse your wrists in cool water with a pinch of salt. Eat food with minerals and chew until the mind stops fizzing. Write the inflated thought on paper so it can shrink to size. Tidy a surface. Open a window. Call someone who tells you the truth without performance. These simple acts are embarrassingly effective because they return you to the place where your agency actually lives. Here, now, in the next proportionate step, you will meet the glamour of specialness. It arrives dressed like destiny, but it spends money you don't have and borrows credibility from the future. Antidote: anonymity. In practice, do quiet work no one will ever see. Sweeping your own floor, finishing a draft, sending a private thank you. Let your nervous system learn that goodness doesn't need an audience to be real. If the pull to announce your signs is irresistible, delay by an hour. If it's still worth sharing after you've acted, share the action, not the omen. People love to whisper about shadow brotherhoods and secret clubs when they feel the itch of power. Keep your language clean. Conspiracies exist. More often, incentives do the job. The Hermetic warning about Atlantis is less about villains and more about velocity. When technology outruns wisdom, systems fail. Your task isn't to fight phantoms. It's to marry power and care inside your own practice, so you aren't adding to the same imbalance at a smaller scale. If you can't use a small sign to be kinder to the person in front of you, you aren't ready for a larger one. Boundaries are holy. Set them in sentences a child could understand. I don't take messages after 9. I won't discuss that without context. I need an hour. No, you're allowed to be brief. You're allowed to repeat yourself. You're allowed to leave. If someone, human or not, only respects your spirituality when you abandon your boundaries, that someone is asking for your life force, not your love. Close that door. You won't miss anything worth keeping. Here's a compact ritual you can keep without props. When 1111 appears, and you sense static, do this. Sit or stand upright. 1 hand on heart, 1 on belly. 4 breaths in for 4 counts, out for 6. Say quietly, I align with truth and compassion. Anything else may go. Picture your body as the 4 ones, upright through crown, heart, navel, root. Let the exhale carry debris out through the soles of your feet. Then take one action that brings order. Sip water. Send a clarifying message. Step outside for sunlight, or return to the task you promised yourself. Protection is a verb. Keep your practice checkable. Share your methods with one trusted person who isn't impressed by special effects. Agree that either of you can ask, is this making you more honest, more gentle, more brave? If the answer slides off the plate, adjust. The point of protection protocols isn't to make you invulnerable. It's to make you correctable before you drift into harm. Even the best pilots fly with instruments and colleagues. You don't become less spiritual by using simple dashboards. You become safer to be around. Finally, remember that fear is also glamorous. It feels serious and intelligent to suspect everything, but chronic suspicion is just pattern hunger with a darker costume. The middle path is quieter, neither gullibility nor cynicism, just patient testing. Take the step you can stand next to a week from now. If your life grows tidier, kinder, more courageous, you're on track. If it grows secretive, frantic, and self-adoring, you've wandered into theater. Turn around without shame. Begin again with breath, boundary, consent, and one decent action. If you cultivate this posture, coherence, consent, ethics, grounding, community, most of the trouble never starts. The remaining trouble you can meet like a grown-up, with clear sentences, steady breathing, and the willingness to pause rather than be pulled. Then the doorway of 1111 becomes what it was always meant to be, not a loophole for fantasy, but a moment of clean power you can trust. With guardrails fitted, the map can widen without wobble, which brings us to the layers of the journey and the roles that wake up when you start using the key, not polishing it. With guardrails in place, the map can widen. The traditions speak of layers, houses of being that are distinct but intertwined, like floors in the same building. You don't have to sign a metaphysical contract to use the map. You only have to notice how the same moment feels different as your attention shifts floor by floor. 1111 shows up across these layers not as a prophecy, but as a key that fits several locks. The symbol stays the same, 4 clean uprights. But what opens depends on where you stand inside yourself. On the physical floor, the sign arrives as timing and placement. You catch the digits when your hand reaches the handle, when your toe steps onto the train, when the kettle clicks. The cue is weight and breath, shoulders dropping, jaw unhooking, a sense that the next movement wants to be simpler than the story you've been telling. Physical 1111 invites a clean, embodied action: drink water, change posture, walk to the difficult room, close the laptop, make the bed, start the rep. There is nothing small about those moves. They're the hinges on which larger doors swing. Ascend 1 level, and the air is thicker with image. Astral 11 presents as mood, symbol, and magnetism. You feel pulled towards a place or a person. A memory surfaces with color and scent. A song lands on the exact lyric that names what you won't. Here the work is hygiene and honesty. Clear the heavy echo from last night's argument. Stop dosing yourself with media that jangles your field. Write the dream before it turns to mist. Choose one feeling and let it move through without a speech. The sign at this layer is a nudge to tidy your emotional room so the rest of the house doesn't have to carry its mess. On the mental floor, the digits click when a pattern clarifies. You see the structure under the chatter, the assumption you've been serving, the loop you've been rehearsing, the false dilemma that kept you stuck. Mental 11 is an invitation to change the sentence that has been running your decisions. The move might be as crisp as replacing should with choose, or as practical as drawing the map you kept in your head and finding the hole. At this level, the pillar is a bracket. It frames a thought, so you can edit it with precision. Causal is subtler, a sense of sequence and consequence. At this layer, 1111 doesn't dazzle, it aligns timelines. You notice that one proportionate step now prevents 5 repairs later. You cancel the call, so the later conversation can be clear. You run the numbers before you sign. You choose sleep because tomorrow matters more than entertainment. The key here is responsibility without heaviness. You're not playing God, you're respecting causation. The doorway offers a rare gift in a culture that celebrates immediacy, the calm to plant the right seed at the right depth, at the right time. The Buddhic floor tastes like compassion that doesn't perform. The sign arrives with a softening in the ribcage and a widening of view. You remember the other person's burden without excusing harm. You can hold 2 truths at once: consequence and care. 1111 here is a reminder to pick the kinder phrasing, to listen past your rebuttal, to forgive without pretending nothing happened, to ask, what would help them stand upright? This isn't the syrup of niceness. It's the strength to keep your heart online when it would be fashionable to harden. Higher still, the atmic floor brings a brief taste of certainty without aggression. You don't feel invincible, you feel appropriate. There's a rightness to the next step that doesn't need applause or defense. 11 often lands as you reach for the handle of a decision you've already made in honest, quiet, resign, propose, publish, begin again. At this layer, 4 ones feel like a spine, your own, and the action is simply to match your outer posture to the inner line you've been carrying. At the highest practical layer, sometimes called logoic, the sign is less about you and more about presence. There's a hush that doesn't feel empty. You sense pattern beyond your planning, how your small act might be a thread in a larger weave. This is not grandiosity, it is relief. The compulsion to prove drains out. 11 here is a bell that says, do the good in front of you. The rest is not your department. The movement is obedience in the best sense. You agree to be one clean instrument among many. Across these floors, certain roles tend to wake. If you're 11 seconds cluster around bodies and places, hands in soil, hands on shoulders. You may be a healer in plain clothes, the one who brings nervous systems back to ground. If they land on books, whiteboards, kitchen tables with pens, you may be a teacher, someone who can turn fog into sentences. If they appear on bridges, between teams, disciplines, cultures, you might be a bridge builder who translates without diluting. If the pattern keeps surfacing in circles, group chats, neighborhood kitchens, you could be a community weaver, the friend who turns names into nourishment. And if your timings arrive at the seam of code and conscience, you might be a steward of tech with spirit, tasked with keeping tools aligned to dignity. This isn't astrology by number, it's a practical lens. Read your distribution. Where do the timings cluster? Workbench, inbox, school gate, server logs, hospital corridor. Who's usually within arm's reach when they land? What emotion is most often present? Tenderness, courage, clarity, relief. Map those clues for a month without trying to make them tidy. Patterns will surface, and with them, a sense of the lane where you do your best work without burning your soul. Remember, the layers aren't ladders. You're not graduating from body to sky. You're learning to move between floors with grace, bringing order downwards and love upwards. The point of a high view is not to despise the stairs. It's to carry clean instruction to the room that needs it. A good day often touches 3 or 4 floors lightly. You drink water, edit a sentence, pick the kinder phrase, and sign the paper you were born to sign. That is not small. That is a house in harmony. You don't need to name any of this to live it, but naming helps some people stop chasing fireworks and start noticing where the real work is already inviting them. When 1111 appears, you can ask, which floor is speaking, and which role is needed now? Then do the next proportionate act at that level and let the rest wait. If a day wants physical courage, give it. If a conversation wants Buddhic tenderness, give that. If a project needs atmic resolve, stand up and accept the weight. The sign is the same. The lock it turns changes. As you practice, the edges between floors soften. Coherence on one level often improves the others. A glass of water and 10 minutes of tidying can rescue a conversation that would have broken a friendship. A compassionate sentence can save you 3 days of legalese. A clean decision at your desk can make your body sleep. This is as above, so below, as craft rather than slogan. Order travels. In a moment, we'll make this map actionable. Thoth's work was never about collecting pretty diagrams. It was about turning alignment into influence in the most ordinary sense. Choices that hold, promises that stick, lives that make sense from the inside. The next doorway is practical. How to use 1111 to align, to amplify without distortion, and to anchor your intent in the world so it lasts beyond the moment that announced it. Alignment is not a mood, it is a position you can take. Think of 11. 11 as a carpenter's level. You place it on your day and read the bubble. If it's off, you don't curse the tool, you adjust the beam. Thoth's method is brutally simple. Alignment, amplification, anchoring, and each stage prevents the 2 classic failures of manifestation, grasping at outcomes you can't hold, and leaking energy through delays disguised as research. Alignment is asking the only question that matters at the doorway. What would the truer version of me do next? Not what would look impressive, what would be faithful. You get there by bringing your body into one line, crown over heart over belly, and letting the breath lead the mind instead of the mind strangling the breath. 4 in, 6 out, twice. Then name the intent in a sentence you could read to a child. I will send the apology today. I will draft the first 2 pages. I will ask for the meeting and accept the answer. Keep the language concrete. If you can't measure it in an hour, it's probably a fantasy. Alignment is humility in action. I will do what's mine, and only what's mine. Today, amplification is fuel, not frenzy. Emotion is the current that carries intent through tissue into behavior. Dirty fuel, panic, vanity, scarcity, burns the engine even if it moves the car for a mile. Clean fuel is gratitude, tenderness, and a quiet certainty that your job is the next faithful step, not the weather. At 1111, instead of summoning fireworks, remember 3 proofs you already live in alignment. a promise you kept, a person you served, a piece of craft you finished. Let the body feel that memory for 20 seconds. Warmth in the chest, shoulders loose, jaw unhooked. That's your clean current. You aren't hyping yourself into action. You're charging the circuit that already knows how to move without drama. Anchoring is where most people fall through the floor. They turn the moment into mood and never touch the world. Thoth's craft is the opposite. Tie the intent to a physical act inside 24 hours. Small is serious. Put the proposal on the calendar. Send the 2-sentence email. Transfer the first 100. Delete the app that dilutes your days. Order the tool you need to begin. Write the opening paragraph and leave it on your desk. When the act is done, log it. Not the omen, the act. 1111 called mom and listened. 1111 wrote paragraph 1. 1111 booked dentist. Stopped postponing pain. Logs turn romance into data. Data turns goodwill into momentum. Make the process stupidly convenient. Keep a vow card in your pocket. An index card with 3 lines you're allowed to write on. Intent. First step. Timestamp. When 1111 appears, you fill the card. You take the step. You put the card back. You move on. At night, copy the cards into a simple ledger. Date, doorway, step. After a month, patterns emerge. You'll see which floors of the house call you most, which hours you honor, which promises still scare you. This is not superstition. It's user research on your own nervous system. Let community multiply what you begin alone. Find one person who speaks plainly and doesn't clap for performance. Make a standing check-in, 15 minutes once a week. Share only what you did, not what you saw. Ask each other the same 3 questions. What did you anchor? What leaked? What is the next smallest faithful step? If either of you starts hunting spectacle, the other rings the bell back to craft. Groups can work too if they protect the signal from theater. Circles that trade modest acts, not magical claims. There will be days when alignment feels impossible. That's when you shrink the unit until you can win. If a chapter is too heavy, write 2 sentences. If a run is too much, walk to the corner. If the call terrifies you, write the first line of the message and breathe for 1 minute. Progress built from such atoms is not humble brag material, but it compounds. Most impossible lives fell apart not from a single failure, but from the daily choice to abandon the smallest possible victory. Don't abandon yours. Guard against the 2 thieves, control and collapse. Control says, make exactly this happen by Friday, or you're failing. Collapse says, if it's meant to be, it will happen without you. Alignment replies, do the proportionate act that is yours. Release the rest. Repeat. The moment you notice yourself bargaining with the universe, if I see 11, 3 times, then I'll stop. You're outsourcing agency to randomness. Flip it. Because I saw it once, I will do the thing I already know is clean. The difference between magic thinking and mature practice is who moves first. Design your environment so anchoring is the path of least resistance. Place the notebook open on the desk before bed. Put your shoes by the door and your phone charger in another room. Remove one app that steals the hour after 11 p.m. Pre-draft the email subject lines you fear so you only have to add the body when the window opens. Lay out the tools for the task you avoid. Environments make liars of our excuses. A well-set room makes courage cheaper. Manifestation has been sold like shopping with incense. That's why so many feel both drawn to and repelled by it. Try this truer definition. Manifestation is not procurement, it's participation. You are not ordering the universe to deliver parcels. You are consenting to become the kind of person who can steward what you're asking for without breaking it. That is why power must marry compassion. Without compassion, you'll use people as packaging. With it, you'll build things that outlast your mood. Now, a compact ritual you can run without props in under 2 minutes when 1111 appears. Stand or sit upright. 4 in, 6 out. Twice. Name one intent in a child. Clear sentence. Recall one proof that you have kept a promise before. Take one irreducible action that fits inside the next hour. Log it in 10 words or fewer. Return to your day. That's it. No talismans, no bargains. Just alignment, amplification, anchoring, done while the window is open. We also anchor by refusing to rehearse the result. When you take the step, do not immediately sprint to the fantasy of outcomes. Let the action be enough for 1 hour. The nervous system learns trust when you stop yanking on the sprout to make it taller. Results compound in quiet rooms that keep showing up. You are becoming someone reliable. Let that be the headline. A last picture. You see 11:11 on the oven clock while washing a mug. No halo, no hum. Just a clean feeling that the next hour belongs to the thing you keep postponing because you're afraid of being ordinary at it. You dry your hands. You set a timer for 50 minutes. You do the work badly and honestly. The world does not applaud. Your nervous system does. That is anchoring. That is how numbers become a life. One breath-led alignment. One clean emotion. One irreducible action at a time. Repeated until the line holds by itself. The calendar is not a cage, but it does keep time. Something quickened around 2012, not a prophecy fulfilled like a stage cue, more a rise in background voltage. You can feel it if you've lived long enough to remember a slower internet, longer attention, the way days used to have corners you could lean on. Acceleration isn't only speed, it is compounding, more inputs, more signals, more ways to fray your field, and paradoxically more ways to hear a clear bell if you learn to listen. 11:11 flourished in that noise because it is frictionless symmetry. It cuts through busyness in a single blink and asks you the same old question, are you upright and will you act? Tipping points are not magic thresholds where the universe flips a switch and a choir sings. They are statistical facts with human faces. When a small fraction of a network stabilizes around a practice, behavior spreads, not by preaching, but by proximity. The number doesn't need to be huge. 3 to 5% of a system carrying coherence can tilt norms. We've watched it happen in culture again and again. Seatbelts, recycling, how we talk about mental health, the way a single phrase, "That's not okay," finds a spine in a room and quietly changes outcomes. The same mechanics apply to attention. If a few percent of us learn to choose cleanly when the window opens, the world we share inherits the benefits. Less theater, more repair, fewer escalations, more proportionate steps. This is where the Atlantis caution matters. In that story, read it metaphorically or historically, the fall wasn't only flood, it was imbalance. Technology outran tenderness. Power forgot its purpose. The fix is not to distrust tools, it is to pair skill with conscience every time. 11:11 is a tiny, stubborn reminder to marry power and compassion at the scale you can actually influence. The conversation you're in, the platform you use, the product you ship, the child who is watching you for cues on how adults behave. If you can't use a small sign to be kinder and more competent, you aren't ready to handle larger levers without wobble. Hope without work is theater. Work without hope is grind. The practice you've learned is hope with a handle. Alignment gives you a lever. Amplification gives you fuel. Anchoring gives you traction. When enough people run that loop quietly, without hashtags, rooms change. Meetings end earlier because truth arrived sooner. Neighbors help before committees form. Code ships with guardrails because someone remembered the user as a person. This is boring revolution, which is the only kind that lasts. Better defaults multiplying until they look like common sense. Timelines matter because human bodies live inside them. You will have seasons where the window lands on you daily, like the world itself is conspiring to help. You will have seasons where weeks go by without a single clean prompt. The instruction doesn't change. On bright weeks, don't boast. Act and let the act stand. On quiet weeks, don't sulk. Keep the scaffolding, breath, boundary, craft, kindness, so you're easy to find when the bell rings again. 11. 11 is not a lottery, it is tempo. Holding tempo through weather is maturity. A picture of the threshold at scale. Imagine a city where 5 in 100 people breathe before they reply, tidy their language before it trips a fight, and convert one small good intent a day into action. Streets don't glow, angels don't land, but queues get kinder. Staff meetings hurt less, ambulance sirens stay rare. Teenagers copy steadiness without naming it. None of that headlines. All of that heals. And because behavior spreads, the 5 becomes 6, then 7, not because they won an argument, but because humans naturally mimic what keeps us intact. There is heat around 11:11 now. Memes, merch, glib, takes that turn a training bell into a personality badge. That's fine. Signals attract decoration. Your task is to refuse glamour without becoming cynical. Keep the craft plain. Keep the ethics central. Keep your practice checkable by the people who know your real name. We don't need a priesthood of numerology. We need citizens who can hold a line. Parents, builders, nurses, founders, writers, coders, people who can meet a moment without flinching or flaring. You are not late to this work. The window opens exactly where you are, at a sink, in a queue, on a call, at a screen. You don't have to fix the century. You only have to keep your corner clean and generous, and to do it with others who are allergic to theater. When you can't find them, be one. When you find them, make it ordinary to practice together. If the next decade belongs to anyone, it belongs to the quietly reliable, the ones who can absorb a shock without passing it on. If this work matters to you, join our free newsletter at the link in the description. Some teachings live off-platform, and for a limited time, we'll email you our ebook so you don't miss what we can't publish here. Here's how. It ends, which is really how it begins. A kitchen, a clock, 11. 11 arrives without music. You feel the breath arrive like a friend, returning from a long trip. Shoulders drop, jaw softens. The question is as modest as ever. What would the truer version of me do next? You do it. You log it, or you don't. You move on with a kinder spine. Somewhere else, a handful of people do the same, and the graph bends by a degree no algorithm can measure. The window closes. The work continues. If you feel this on a deep level, comment, "I get the code."